There's an ocean of doubt in front of me, and my back's up against the wall. I know it's an opportunity for my God to show his heart, and it may look impossible in the natural, but I know that it's not, 'cause I know that my God will come through. There is an ocean
Hey gang, welcome to Wellspring Kids. And have we got a crazy story in store for you today? But let's kick things off with our verse. Have you been practicing? I have. I think I've almost got it, but I still need a little help. So let's try it. Do you have the gift of speaking? Then speak as though God Himself were speaking through you. Do you have the gift of helping others? Do it with all the strength and energy that God supplies. Then everything you do will bring glory to God through Jesus Christ. 1 Peter 4:11. Now I had to look a little bit, but I'm getting it better. But we learned last week that the key word is God, because these gifts come from God, and God gives us the power and ability to use them. So if you have the gift of speaking, then speak as if God Himself were speaking through you. Do you have the gift of helping others? Then work with the strength and energy that God supplies. Then everything you do will bring glory to Jesus Christ. Now, I know it wasn't completely right, but it was close. So I've got to keep working on it. So maybe next week we'll get it right down. Now let's see, where did Samson mess up? Samson messed up because he forgot that God was his source of strength. Remember, our strength is found in God. Well, this week we're going to learn that disobedience separates us from God. Wow, that's a tough go answer. Let's practice it so we don't do it. Disobedience separates us from God. That's hard even to think about. Like, I don't want to be separated from God. But the Bible tells us that our disobedience separates us from God. That reminds me of being a pilot. You say, Pastor Johnny, I don't remember the word obedience being in pilot. Let's practice it, and I'll tell you where it fits in. Let's go. Prepared, involved, loving, open to God, team player. Now, where do you think obedience fits in? Obedience fits in when we're open to God. Open to God, obedience. They both start with the letter O, so it's easy to remember. So when we're open to God's leading and we become obedient to His leading and His word, when we're prepared, we prepare differently because we're being obedient to God's calling. When we get involved, we're involved differently because we're getting involved in what God's called us to. When we're loving, we're being loving because the Bible requires us to be loving and forgiving. And so we're open, obedient, and our teamwork is so much better. Wow. Woo. When we get into application, that's a lot to think about. I don't know about you, but my brain's smoking just a little bit. Whew. Gotta take a break. So, if disobedience separates us from God, and being a pilot helps us to remember to be open to God's leading so that we can be obedient and learn how to obey Him more effectively, that reminds me of our old verse, that we learn to know our Creator by renewing our mind to begin to know Him and become like Him. See how it all works together? As we learn one biblical truth, we can apply it to the next situation in our life. Well, Samson knew a lot of things, but Samson was not being obedient. Samson wasn't being open to God's leading. He wasn't remembering that his strength is found in God, and he was using his gifts that were God-given for his own purposes. And we learned last week it was affecting everyone around him. The children of Israel were suffering, the people in Judah were suffering, and Samson didn't care. You would think that Samson would have learned his lesson last week when everything went wrong with his marriage. But did Samson learn? No. So we've looked at Samson's birth, we've looked at his battles, now we're going to look at kind of a bad day, or a couple of bad days in Samson's life. So, Samson found another girl that he liked. And this girl was not a girl that God approved of. Because remember, when Samson was born, he was special. And there were certain things that Samson was supposed to do, and there were certain things that Samson wasn't supposed to do. So Samson was going to visit this Philistine girl, and he knew he wasn't supposed to, It was disobedient to God, it was dishonoring to his parents, but he did it anyway. And the Philistines were ruling over the children of Israel, and they were out to get Samson at every turn. They were afraid of him, but they didn't like him at all. And so Samson was going down. He wasn't even trying to hide what he was doing. Everyone knew where he was and what he was doing and where he was going. And so they hid out by the gates of the city to get him when he left the next day. But Samson found out they were there. And Samson was so strong, he went to the gates that had been locked to keep him in, and he ripped the gates off with superhuman strength, put them on his back, and carried them on top of a hill and dropped them off, and just went on his way. Did I say superhuman? Well, I meant supernatural, because it wasn't Samson's strength, it was God's strength in Samson. Well, the Philistines were so mad. Like really mad. Give me your best mad face. Go, I'm mad. They were that mad and even then some. So they went to Delilah, and that was Samson's girlfriend. They said, "You've got to tell us his source of strength so we can get him." And she was going to help them. And they said, "If you do that, we're going to give you 1,100 pieces of silver." That's a lot of silver. She would never have to work again. She would be so rich and so wealthy. But if she really loved Samson, if she were the right person for Samson, she would have protected Samson. See, when we start disobeying and it starts separating us from God, we begin to make wrong choices. Samson couldn't even see that she didn't have his best interest at heart. And we're going to learn how. So Delilah went to Samson and she said, "Samson, oh Samson, could you tell me where your strength lies?" Samson looked at her and he said, "Well, if you bind me with bowstrings, new bowstrings, I'll be weak just like any other man." Do you know what bowstrings were in the Bible? They would take the intestines of animals and stretch them out and dry them and use them for bows because it would be stretchy. So Samson told her to tie him up with animal intestines. Well, guess what? She went to her friends that had promised her money, and she told them what Samson told him. So when Samson was taking a nap, she called them in, they tied him up with these intestines, and then she said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And Samson got up and he just burst out of them. And he beat up the Philistines. He just kind of laughed and chuckled. She got all upset. "Samson, Samson, you embarrassed me. You told me that would take away your strength, and it didn't." Well, you think Samson would learn, because if she's trying to get rid of his strength and she has people waiting in the wings to beat him up and to take him into prison, you'd think he would learn. But because Samson was away from God, and he was all consumed with himself and showing off his strength, he kept making the same mistake. Delilah fooled him once, and there's an old saying, "Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you." Well, Delilah did it again. She said, "Samson, Samson, you embarrassed me so terribly in front of my friends. So will you please really tell me where your strength lies?" Samson put on his thoughtful face. He said, "Well, if you tie me up with brand new ropes that have never been used before, it'll take away my strength and I'll be just as any other man." So again, Samson lay down to take a nap. She told her friends, and they had new ropes. They came in and tied Samson up. And Delilah said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And Samson got up, boom, ripped it off like a massive, strong man, and he beat up the Philistines and they ran away. So this isn't the first time, this is 2 times. And then Delilah starts pouting. "You don't love me anymore. I asked you where your strength was, and twice you didn't tell me, and my friends are upset." So Samson told her again something, but it wasn't true. He said, "Oh, okay. If you take my long hair and you weave it into a loom, then I'll have no strength. So, Samson fell asleep again. He must sleep like nobody's business, because again, they came in and they didn't just tie him up. They took his hair and wove it into a loom. They were like making a blanket out of it. And when his hair was all woven into the loom, because remember, they couldn't cut his hair, so his hair must have been really long. Delilah said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And Samson jumped up and ripped his hair out of the loom, and he beat up the Philistines. So again, he told Delilah something, and again, she tells her friends, and again, they try to take him captive. So you would think Samson would get the picture that there was a problem. But no, Samson was so full of himself, and he was so away from God because he was making wrong choices, and his disobedience was separating himself from God, he was about to be in a pickle. Well, wouldn't you know, Delilah started all over again. She said, Samson, I can't believe you. You've embarrassed me so many times in front of my friends. Will you please tell me where your strength lies? Well, Samson had it. And that old saying says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And it should be over by then. But she's fooled him a third time and now trying to fool him a fourth time. And yet, he told her the truth. Because Samson was so full of himself and so full of his own arrogance that he forgot that our strength is found in God. So Samson's strength was found in God, not himself, and that strength was based on his following the Nazirite vow and his obedience to God. He told her, he said, Delilah, here it is. If my hair is cut, if a razor touches my hair, I'll lose my strength. I'll be like any other man. Any other man. So what do you think Delilah was going to do? They had promised her 1,100 pieces of silver. She'd asked him 3 times, and 3 times she brought her friends in to take him prisoner because the Philistines were so mad at him. And now Samson finally tells her part of his vow that was not supposed to be broken. And so what do you think happened? Samson took a nap. He should know better by now, right? Right. But he takes a nap, and Delilah calls in her friends, and they very carefully cut off all his hair. And when they do that, Delilah says, Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And Samson jumps up to beat him up, just like he'd done the first time, and the second time, and the third time. But this time, because he broke his vow, God's Spirit had left him. His strength had left him, and he didn't even notice what had happened. He didn't even notice the difference. And so he got up to defend himself when he couldn't. And they began to tie him down and tie him up, and they took him prisoner. And that's where we stop for this week. Come back next week, and we'll see the end of the story.